Whew, okay. I really hope this worked this time. Oh, yes, perfect. Whew. We're finally back to Infinite Parkour. Now I can actually finally get some stuff done today. So yeah, welcome to Infinite Parkour. This is a project I've been working on for a little bit where you run along, jump on blocks, and they generate new ones in front of you. Just as that works, you fall, you get a high score based on how many blocks you go ahead. You try to beat your high score as many times as you can, and there's different decorations. You can toggle settings there, as well as edit your own jumps to experience. And today, that's kind of where our main focus is going to be. We're going to be looking into introducing some new blocks to really level things up, because with the way that we want to go with this project and the different features and different game modes, we're going to need some new components. We're going to be building this new system to handle all of this as well. So to really get started with anything, we're going to need to take a visit to the editor. While you're in here, there's a little section in here for getting your items. And you know, we have the solid blocks, which are what all the jumps are currently made out of, as well as some features over here that haven't been fully implemented. That includes these special blocks. Now, currently placing these does nothing and even has some weird visuals because we have to be very careful with the way that we implement these and how they're going to work. Honey, these slime blocks, I'm going to start with trying to implement those because I feel like these are part of like the first category of real blocks where they're full solid blocks that just make the player act differently. You can think of that with like ice or soul sand. We can then start looking into what you would traditionally see in parkour, which are blocks that have relatively the same going on with them, but just different hitboxes, like your stairs and your slabs, than just these effect blocks. Because in theory, we just need to actually give the player these solid blocks and everything else will work out with them. The issues come with how the editor is set up and the data around them. So after a lot of tinkering, we now have these implemented. So how it works, if you saw for like one frame, you can see a little friend spawn in here. That is a slime, and you can see his particles over there too. What we have to do is, because of the way that these blocks are formed, these are not actually blocks. These are barriers, as you can see inside, which are a block, but they're not the stone block that I'm showing you. What we do is we place a block display over it, set it to the right size. That way we can make it glow like this effect has right now. We can also have it fully data driven. So when we save and we load, we're able to use these entities to actually get these into the boxes. So when it came to implementing slime and honey, it's a little bit different because we can't just shove a barrier block inside. Otherwise you're not going to stick and you're not going to bounce. So instead we have to still use these blocks, but that comes with its own limitations. That would not work with any of the systems we currently have. So we just combine the two and we give these blocks a block display. You can see it here in the corner, although very difficult. This entity is representing this block. There came to like an impasse here as we were implementing this with the glow outlines that you see here, because block displays are a little weird. You're able to make them glow like this one is here, as long as it's showing a real block that you would normally see. These block displays have to be invisible so that you can still see the slime and the honey, but that means that they can't glow. So to get the glowing effect in the editor, we're using a slime that is just slightly smaller than the block so that I can still place and break these, but it still represents most of the size of the block just for a simple effect. And that took forever to try to figure out. I was posting about it in the Discord while I was developing it, trying to get people to help me out. But as you can see over here, I implemented a loading for these blocks as well as saving, and I made a very simple jump here with honey and slime inside of this new pack. So after switching to that, we could actually go ahead and play with these two as well. As you can see through these animations right here, that right now isn't a solid block, not even a barrier, because that is a display. As you can see, it's shrinking and growing in size. But as soon as I land here, these become solid, but with barriers. And then once I land here, these are gonna have their barriers removed, as you just saw them disappear. And as I get closer to this part, those shrink in size because these are now displays and are not solid blocks. So when it came to the honey and the slime, as we were implementing these, we had more challenges because obviously we just don't shove a barrier block in there and we put the regular block in, right? But these also have to be displays right now. And as soon as I land here, they have to become full blocks. That's not the case with these. These solid blocks are still able to be displays because they're just covering up barrier blocks. So this is still a block display, and it's the same one that we use when shrinking and when growing, but these have to become full blocks so that I can interact with them. And then once we complete the jump here, these need to turn back into block displays so that they can shrink in size. This just kind of shows that how much more involved that these new blocks are, because we could add variations through just changing this block display on the barrier, but that's not going to be that interesting for a player, and we wanted to introduce more mechanics to the parkouring. Now, while using the same system, I should be able to introduce like ice and soul sand, as they're relatively the same in all aspects of functionality. So while jumping right into developing new blocks seems like a really great idea, Flaming, another person on the team, tried to help me with that process, and while developing these slabs that you're about to see, they started to realize just how difficult it is to create new things. To be able to add these slabs, it would involve a whole process of digging through the code in a bunch of different files, changing a bunch of little pieces of data and adding new entries, and it was super inefficient. So to really give you a good heads up on how the whole new system works that we've been working on, we're gonna have to head back to the lab. Warper, let's go on back, shall we? Let me show you over here exactly what I'm talking about. As you know from the game, this is all the different elements that I just ran through actually when I was talking about adding the slime and the honey. We obviously have a whole set here for making sure the block displays in the game are the right sizes, the right blocks get placed. This is where you've been seeing most of the blocks, and they're all listed here. Then, of course, we have editor stuff. These are a little bit different because these gold blocks are actually usually stone. We have different outlines we have to worry about, and so they have their list of data here. And then there's also the little holograms here, having these display, having these save and load what is over here. That had its own information, and then all the bundles in the editor's inventory also had its own. So there's about like 4 different files here in which we had to list out for every single block. For the platforms, you're going to place down a barrier, you're going to use the block display for the area. For the slime, you're going to place this block and not the barrier. It was all different between here. So this approach sucked. If I wanted to add ice, I would have to add it to this list, and this one, and this one, and over here. And these weren't easy to find either because the code's very long. And so Flaming was having an issue when trying to add the slab of being able to even find where to do it all. So after about 2 weeks or so of development, we came up with a solution, and that is the block dictionary. This is a JSON file that lives within the code itself that is then inserted into the game storage, so I can simply do data get storage, and when I'm in Infinite Parkour, I will be able to just grab the full dictionary. This contains every single little bit of information about the block. It will tell me if I need to use a slime for the outline. It will tell me if I need to remove the block display while being placed inside the game. It does all of that. These all simply search the block dictionary for what we're looking for. So while placing this down and we're thinking, hey, what display should I even go here? It's gonna go up here. It's gonna look through every entry and go, oh yeah, I'm trying to place a slab right now and I need to make it sure it's bamboo mosaic slab. Boom. Now we're good. This took forever to set up because of many different reasons. One, to make that JSON file automatically import into the code, I had to edit the compiler we're using. We're using this secondary program that was originally designed by OFAC to let us do some shortcuts in the code. Instead of having to write out a ton of different functions, in this one function, I'm able to make new ones and use macros all in the same spot. I then went and modified that to include JSON. I didn't know how to write Java. The compiler was written in Java. I had to learn that in a weekend, and it does work, thankfully. It's great. Once I got the dictionary in, I had to make all of these searching algorithms for about 7 to 8 different use cases. How that works is these are all numbered 0 through 7. There's also a length tag inside there. All their data has to be 1 level deep. If you go any deeper, then macros can't retrieve it. It can only have tags of like numbers and text. So we go through each number. In some cases, we're checking to see if this block matches the one that we're handling. In some other cases, we're just going through each one, picking the data we need through the macro, inserting it into the commands that we need, and then moving on and clearing any data left over. I should just be able to throw things into here and have them work almost perfectly, right? I mean, that's what we did with the ladder, actually. We didn't program any of the stuff to handle the ladder, and the game handled it fine, actually. So let's actually go and show that off. So yeah, without changing any code, ladders just behave like ladders and work perfectly fine, except for one part. Here's the ladder. It even has outlines. It looks great. It doesn't rotate. So this is just a new functionality we're going to have to introduce. All I have to do is when I place this, look at the direction I'm facing, and then take the reverse or the normal of that, and that should be the direction the ladder should face. All right, so here's how my first attempt went. I did it based on player direction, and it works here for the block. Don't mind the display, we'll fix that after. Except that this isn't actually always correct, because right here, placing it on this side, it should be facing that direction, but placing it here still puts it on this face because my direction didn't change. The only thing that really changed was the block face itself. So I kind of need to figure out what block face I'm actually placing it on and not the direction of the player itself. That's going to be a little bit more challenging though. So I did finally get it done here. Welcome to rotational blocks like the ladders here. It actually took a little bit longer to figure out than I thought it would. So I'm going to go cover that all in the lab. Alright, back in the lab here, so let's talk about exactly how placing ladders down works in the game. This will also go for all rotational blocks in the future. So when I go to try to place a ladder here, I'm not actually placing a ladder, I'm placing an item frame that has data associated with it to tell the game that it is a ladder. Reason why, we want to use entities, that way I can quickly search through all the entities in an area, look for item frames with specific tags, and then place all of the markers and displays that we need to at that location. So when I go to place a ladder, placing an item frame, and it's looking a bit like this is indicating the direction it is facing. It in fact has this data right here, in which there is a little number here which represents exactly how it is rotated. You can actually see this for yourself by pressing F3 and B. You'll have these blue lines, as you can see, everywhere from all the entities. So instead of using the exact rotations of the item frame, facing is a better option because it gives us one number to quickly tell exactly which of the 6 sides it is on, because each of these values is different based on the direction it's on. These correspond, by the way, to the direction outwards that it's facing, like this arrow indicates here. Now when it comes to ladders, we actually only care about 4 of these because we don't place ladders on the tops or bottoms of blocks, so I did not implement rotations for any blocks that do. That will come in the future. This gets complicated because it is not just as simple as placing this item frame, checking this value, going, oh, it's 5. We need to place a block there facing east, because there's actually a couple different things that we're working with here. This is the item frame and its data. The ladder uses obviously the text here, but there's also the block display down here that uses rotational data. So we have to pretty much turn this with single number integer into text and then be able to use it in these 2 floating pairs. So we have to do some math to pretty much normalize these or flip the directions for the block display and do the rotation. And there was some funky stuff there with how the block displays we're using have transformations. We had to correct for that, and all of this lets us use any rotational blocks into the game. So now that every single block currently in works with Infinite Parkour, what about some new ones? For example, let's get some ice in here. Come on, let me do it. Come on. Oh, so what about soul sand? So that jump, which is actually doable with normal blocks, is not doable for me right now because of my slower ability. It also acts as a good one way because once I jump here, I can't jump back without falling. All right, another attempt at it. Let's go. No, cobwebs. So these are kind of weird. You can get some good uses out of them. Like these are some Neos that are kind of optional, as in if I fail, it's not gonna be as punishing. Although it does also lead for some just boring gameplay. I can't do anything until I fully fall through this cobweb, and the fact is people can just spam these. Okay, I know what you're thinking, right? I've been adding all these cool blocks into the game, but they're not the ones that you're expecting or wanting, like the stairs, your fences, your gates. The issue with most of these right now is they involve a little bit more complex systems like the ladders did, where there's more rotations, or there's open and closed states, or there's power levels that we need to save. Lots of stuff that I would love to add, but it's gonna be really complicated and I don't necessarily have the time right now. But one thing I want to do really quick is create a bit of a showcase jump, because I've been showing you all of these in separated jumps. What if we took all of these elements, combined into one jump that really challenged the player? Now let's do a time lapse. Now, this is pretty crazy. I have intentionally tried to incorporate as many elements as I can, and in some really interesting ways. I can go over these kind of briefly, but I believe from watching the video you probably get it. So that is all of the paths. I try to make as many different interesting, cool ways to go through this one because I find that more interesting than just a one linear path straight through. And hopefully this gives you some more ideas for your own jumps when you get to try this out. We plan on doing some future things with the blocks, like I probably mentioned at the beginning, and I'll have to start looking into that for next time. But that brings me to a good question. We're starting to add some of these blocks that have special abilities and stuff like that. And of course, we're going to have blocks with different bounding boxes later. But what about these golds and bamboo mosaic basic looking bland blocks? I want to add some more variation, of course, like everyone's been asking, and I want to do that in the form of a new game mode, and that's all starting to get planned out, which makes me want to ask you, what type of zones or areas would you even want to see in a game like this? And what would really work well on the parkour aspect or like the visual aspect? I've kind of already had some good suggestions in the past, and I just want to get some more. So leave that down in the comments. But this is where I'm going to wrap the video. So make sure you like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to know when I upload the next time. This video was edited by Cinnamon, of course. Some of the design stuff was done by Flaming Thunder, as well as the whole Infinite Parkour team, which has now been expanded upon. So huge shouts out to Ofek, of course, as well as Amara 1000 and Mr. Books, who's been working on some other developmental stuff behind the scenes. I'm also going to go through and fix up some things, and I'm also going to add some more jumps to this pack. We're thinking of adding a launcher for you guys as an optional thing you can download, so you could just run it and have it automatically update to newest alpha releases, as well as maybe some of the experimental ones, and that might be your way to get your hands on some of these features first. But more information about that will come out once that is fully released. It'll be in the pinned comments if you're interested, and of course the download's going to be in the description right now. Join my Discord, that'll be in the description as well, because I'm always looking for more people to come and help, and you can come and join the team. And with all that out of the way, let's head back to the lab. Alright, one last thing I gotta do. I feel like it's warranted now that I kind of know what this is about. I got some stuff I've dug out from beneath the floorboards and stuff, and I want to place something right here. Let's see. Yeah, like some of this up top here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
3 hours later.
And boom! That looks pretty good. The warp.